Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interview Craig, who is a videographer and owner of Watertown Films located in Portland, Oregon. Check it out. All right, Craig, thanks. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate your time. Tell me about your business. Tell me what you do, where you're located, your Instagram, your website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, great. I am a wedding videographer located in Portland, Oregon, born and raised in the Pacific Northwest near the Seattle area. Company is Watertown Films. To find me on social, just do @Watertown Films and you'll find me everywhere, the places I want to be found.
All right. And you got that for everything, right? Which is great. You don't always get that, right?
No, it's nice and simple that way.
Yeah, you got lucky there. Let's talk about kind of what goes into the work that you do, because I think video, to me, I feel like video is becoming more popular. I mean, not only just online in general, like with social and TikTok and YouTube and a variety of other things, but I feel like generally people are becoming more comfortable with video. Do you feel like that's happening too?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has an amazing video camera in their pocket now to some degree. And then you have apps like TikTok, which they're made for video, right? Instagram's photo video. Now you have TikTok that's blowing up. And it's just straight documentation of video. It is geared towards candid documentation. And when they match music to it, people get really comfortable. And if you know how to dance, you're going to win. So because of that, I think that my take on video is like when you think about the wedding day, photo has such a good track record, like decades. Video does not have a good track record. It was kind of subpar. Image quality was subpar. The story, you could have been a great storyteller, but maybe your equipment just couldn't visually make it as appealing. But then back in 2004, 2005, everything changed and technology caught up, and now it's just running at a super fast pace. And because of that, now the image quality is stunning. And then you have the rise of YouTube and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely technology has changed, right? I mean, like the equipment's a little easier, probably a little more easier to handle, right? than it was in the past.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's as when I started back in 2011, just growing the business and managing gear and figuring out what are kind of the signatures that I want my films to be. I mean, we went through a whole stage to the point to where I had a fully mounted chest thing with an arm, a Steadicam rig. And I mean, that was like just that all the gear I take to a wedding now could fit in the size of that case. Just saying, it's like everything's really come down. And the beautiful thing about that is that in my opinion, in a wedding, the less gear you bring, and this is where people can they can have different approaches, which is awesome. But my approach is the less gear, the better, for multiple reasons. It allows us to be quick, and it also makes people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how long you been actually doing this?
I did film back in high school. I did video production, and then I got a job after or during high school at a church working in the media department. I didn't see it as a career opportunity at that time, so I left it. Was an electrician, was an EMT, volunteer firefighter. Met my wife, who's a nurse. Quit our jobs, moved to quit our jobs up in Seattle, traveled the country for 2.5 months, road trip style. Landed in Portland, and it was on that road trip where, in the process of me documenting our road trip and also seeing everything that had changed and watching wedding films that made me cry, I was just like, I didn't see it as a career opportunity. But then on that road trip, instead of going to be essentially a paramedic, I changed my career path and said, I'm going to start a business. So we started that. Me and my wife started together, and now we got 3 kids, 4th on the way. We started that in 2011.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations on the new kid on the way.
Thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about what happens after, or let's say I contact you and I want you to do a video for me. What does that process actually look like? Because I got to imagine that people get a little bit, I'm not sure they know what they want always, right?
Yep.
It's like, oh, I think I want photography, but yeah, I'd love video. And I don't know. Tell me what those conversations look like.
Yeah, the couples can come at you at all sorts and different stages in the process. And part of what I mean by that is like, maybe she wants it and he doesn't, or vice versa, or one of them wants it or both of them kind of want it. But it's all over the board. And I think that goes back to, like, if you think about photography, like your parents, when they got married, probably had great photos, maybe had a really subpar video, even if they had one. And then again, coming into now, it's like, these are the first, not first, but this is the first wave of people who are actually getting films. You're like, that looks like, I know a videographer, he shot something down in Colombia, and I'm like, that looks like an episode of the Narcos, but it's a wedding film. And I'm just like, this
Wow.
is nuts, the time that we're in. So couples inquire. If they inquire with me currently, this is kind of what they get. I follow up immediately with an email, and the main things of those emails is I just want to give them a starting at price. So once they, in my questionnaire, they kind of tell me where they're getting married, which then allows me to kind of figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
I send them a starting at price, and then I encourage them on next steps. And next steps for me is scheduling a phone call. And it's on that phone call that if they are in that price range, like, cause you just never fully know.
Yeah.
Um, if they are in that price range, then at that point we hop on a call, and that's just a huge discovery call. Like, I get to know them. I hear their story. I love hearing, like, I love asking the question, like, how'd the proposal go down, hearing about the proposal. And I love asking couples, like, hey, do you
Yeah.
remember what, like, asking the guy, like, do you remember what he said? And it's like a 50-50, which is great, because I'm like, that's what your wedding's going to be like. You think it'll be etched in stone, but it won't. And
Yeah.
the same way you felt about the proposal that happened a month, 2, 3, 4 months ago, where you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it was a blur. That's going to happen your wedding day too.
Yep.
Um, and then from there, it's just asking a ton of questions about, like, when you go to a wedding, what do you really look forward to? When you think about your own wedding, what are you looking forward to? What are things that you don't look forward to? And then when couples come to your website, most of the time when people see films, they're highlight films, right? They're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, really, intense, cinematic, quick edits, non-sequential throughout the day. But on
Yeah.
top of that, there's also a lot of other things that you can walk away with from your wedding day that probably isn't stuff you'll post on social media. It's stuff that will just be really valuable to you and your family and your kids. Things like a documentary cut of the ceremony, a documentary cut of your speeches, something that I call a legacy film. And that's the other thing in the industry. I'll use words, like I'll say highlight film. There's just a little nugget. I'll use like highlight film, but other videographers will use that too, but we mean different things. And
Hmm.
so it's almost too, when couples are like, it's a confusing time, because also, like, the lingo, it's not like all the
Yeah.
videographers got together, agreed on terms. So that's where then I just explain, hey, this is what it is. This is what I mean by that. And this is why it exists.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things like that. Aerial footage, same day edits, rehearsal dinner coverage. I always tell couples, like, the best speeches that are going to happen at your wedding day are going to happen the day before your wedding at the rehearsal dinner. It's like a
Yeah.
Chinese proverb. But yeah, it's a big process because they don't fully know. So then I like to think of my phone calls like, even if you don't book me, you're going to get a mini education that's really going to equip you to make a better decision
Yeah.
pre-wedding. And the
That's
beautiful
good.
thing is that it's still pre-wedding. You can still change your mind. Me and, like, I'm post-wedding. I can't do anything about it now. I can't go back. There's no redos. So
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. There's no redos.
yeah,
You could try to I've heard people try to recreate the day for various different, like, for photography purposes, but yeah, I mean, you
yeah.
just can't do it. It's not possible. Um, that's great. Yeah, and what you said about the lingo, yeah, I've heard that from a couple of videographers around highlight film.
Mhm.
And how is that? I mean, explain to me how it's different with you, because I've heard that from a couple folks, and I've heard some other people tell me and explain to me what it is. But what is it different? Why is it different with you?
Well, I think it's, the reason I say it's different is just because if you couples can come and say, hey, we want a highlight film, we want a documentary film, we want a feature film. They could just use all sorts of terminology, and they could have talked to somebody who says, hey, our feature film is an 18-minute film that's kind of like a highlight film, just really extended. For a
Hmm.
long time, I called my documentary edits like a feature film. Like,
Yeah.
and for what that meant for me was, hey, I take all the usable footage from your day and chronologically edit it so that you can go back and watch it. Because another thing that, and I think this is universal to some degree, but sometimes couples, they have this notion that they want raw footage, and my thing, that's fine. But when you think about raw footage, usually they're interpreting that from, like, a photographer.
Yeah.
So meaning the photographer will send them raw images, maybe. But if you think about that, that's really easy to consume. You just click, 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 and you're just watching, and each one is a standalone image. But with video, it's like raw footage just doesn't make much sense, especially in the fact that, if you have a ceremony, it's like, say you have 4 cards, SD cards from the entire wedding. Say you had 4 cameras or something.
Yeah.
Say all 4 of those cameras were rolling during ceremony. Okay, well now you have a folder, and halfway down that folder is some ceremony clips. You go to the next folder, halfway down that folder is some ceremony clips. But the audio sucks. Oh, well, you got to go to the audio folder and listen to a 2-hour audio chunk, but really there's 30 minutes in there somewhere where the ceremony starts and ends.
Yeah.
That's raw footage, not super user friendly. And so that's where then I designed a film where I'm saying, hey, I want to make something like a documentary film. That's where I call it the legacy film, because I call it legacy because it's, yes, you're getting married, but it's almost like the whole family should be paying for it, because they're all benefiting from it, because you're taking the brunt of it. But really, it's almost like you're commissioning a videographer to say, hey, document, the Smiths and the Wessons. Smith and Wesson, that was weird that I even used that.
Yeah.
Document these 2 families coming together. Everybody's going to benefit from it, because all of a sudden we have video footage of grandma. All of a sudden grandpa gave a speech, and it's like, that's like your legacy. And as you move past, your kids can watch back. And that's not just about mom and dad. It's also about the family. Like, what was grandpa like? So.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned the way that it is formatted on the disc, because I think people are so familiar with like taking video on their phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh yeah, it's just a video on my phone, right? It's all it really, I mean, in their heads, there's probably how they're thinking about it, right? But
and to some degree it is.
Right. But you're recording the audio kind of differently. You're recording the actual video, and it becomes this thing you have to look at and pull together, right?
I mean, when most people record on their phone, they're right. This is what we think of. We think of selfie. We think of flipping it around, filming our kids at the park, filming a trip to Central Oregon, whatever it is. But what they don't realize is they're hiring, I shouldn't say what they don't realize, but the reality is when they're having main events like a first look, a ceremony of speeches, it's like, and that's the other thing, depending on who you talk to, somebody might show up with 1 camera, 2 cameras, 3 cameras, 4 cameras. And so for me, we run anywhere from 2 to 3 cameras at a ceremony. Well, it's not just 2 to 3 cameras. So it's like, we have this camera here, which is say a back angle. And then we have another camera that's like really focused on the bride's face. That's a lot tighter. Because in editing, you got to cut stuff together and make a story. When they film, they're not editing. They're just saying, oh, here's a 30-second shot of us, hanging out at the park and slacklining, whatever it is. But for us, like, we want it, but that's not super interesting. It's interesting to them, but obviously we're making highlight films, and we need to make films that not only interest our couples, but they're also our marketing. So we need to make films that are hopefully enjoyable enough so that a stranger could watch them and enjoy them. And then on top of that, if they're recording themselves, the camera is 1.5 feet away from their face.
Right.
So if I record myself and send a video message to my mom, she can hear me just fine. But during the ceremony, you don't want somebody up. You don't want a camera 2 feet from your face. You want the camera all the way in the back so that you aren't bothered, the guests aren't bothered. And so because of that, then we have 1 to 2 audio recorders on the officiant. We have 1 to 2 audio recorders on the groom. We have at least 1 on the bride. And then we have 1 to 2 on the DJ.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about, like, at least for me, right? I'm walking away with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7 individual audio files, and add 8 if there's a special reading, because then we mic up the special reading as well.
Yeah.
But if there's like a special reading, say that audio recording's 2 hours long and the special reading was 60 seconds, you're talking about trying to find that 60-second chunk in that 2-hour recording. So in terms of raw footage, that's just where somebody has to curate it and put it together. And that's where a feature film comes in. And that's where it's so different than like raw photos, which are so easily consumable. Makes
sense. It totally makes sense. So how much, like, besides the day preparing for the work that you have to do, how much time are you spending, like, afterwards, having to edit the film and put it all together? I mean, because it seems like there's a lot of little pieces. Like you just said, 60 seconds, someone had to go talk about something, and you got to find that in the audio somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Generally got an idea, but I mean, I'm just editing getting clips out of these interviews. I mean, I'm watching the whole interview again and again and again, trying to get clips out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, so that's where it is a lot different. So for them to consume the raw audio isn't super easy, right? And for us, it wasn't even that simple or straightforward back in the day. But with technology now, it's like I'm on a Mac, I'm on Final Cut X. There's a program now that essentially when you enter all the video content into your editor, you essentially do a lot of metadata labeling, right? You tell the editor saying, hey, every single clip in this folder is from one camera. Every single clip from this folder is from one camera. Every single audio file from this recorder is one source of audio. So you're essentially spending this time where you're telling the computer, Final Cut X, saying, hey, this is how to think about everything I just documented this wedding.
Yeah.
Now, then you group together, like, let's just take ceremony. You group together, 2, 3, 4 angles, 5, 6, 7, 8 audio sources. You grab them all. Then you tell Final Cut, hey, multicam this, bring it all together. And then the beautiful thing, it used to be a third-party plugin that does this. Now it's in-house in Final Cut X.
Nice.
And you just literally say, hey, click multicam. And then what it does is sometimes it takes longer than others, but it takes all that content together, looks at the audio waveforms, the algorithm of it, the waveform action, and matches all of that, and then puts it all together.
That's
So
beautiful.
by doing that, then when I go back and look at and say I'm making a ceremony film, I'm able, as I'm watching it live, I'm able to see like 3 to 4 video angles and cut between those when I want to, right? Maybe a photographer walked in front of an angle, so we're cutting away from that. Maybe I was adjusting an angle, so we're cutting away from that. Or maybe it's like, okay, great, special reading came up and grandpa or a brother is giving a toast. Okay, great, let's find the special reading audio, click to that, make that live. Okay, great, let's now go back to the officiant. And you're just watching it, just doing a dance. It's almost like, it's like you're in a newsroom cutting between angles and okay, now go to the groom, go to the bride,
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
It takes time. It's something where there's benefits in doing it as quick as possible. And by that, I mean, doing it in one to 2 to 3 sittings. So sitting down, and you want to get to mile markers. Like now I'm just like teaching an editing course. It's like, you want to get to mile markers. The first mile marker you want to get to is you want to rough cut all the footage. So rough cutting all the footage is saying, hey, we're going to go through, and this is a big step in determining music choice. So a lot of couples ask about music. And I always tell them, well, first we need to get something legal, right? Something that we can actually get licensed rights to. And then additionally, we want to find something that complements the day. We don't want it to be in opposition to it. And so one of the ways that you do that is you rough cut it all, right? So you go through and you take out all the bad clips, find all the good clips, star the favorite clips, like if they had a really special moment at the first look, or if the dad said something just really stunning midway through a speech. You go multicam the ceremony, first look, speeches. If there were any like gift exchange, special readings, anything like that, that's all considered A-roll in my mind because it's verbal content. And then B-roll is just everything else on top of that. So you clean it all up. Like right now, if you were editing the podcast, you'd probably cut off the first 10 minutes where we're kind of catching up. The last section, if we kind of BS about some stuff. And then if this was like a true edit, you'd cut out some crap in the middle where like, if I'm like, oh, a battery died, hold on, let me go swap that out real quick. So you go through everything. And then at that point, that is the best time because you've consumed the whole day within a period of time where you've gone through everything. That's the best time to say, great, what do I feel about this couple now? I'm going to go find music in light of that. And then the next stage is like the creative, like sit down and get through the creative highlight edit. Right. And that's where I set timers for myself. It's like, I want to get X amount of content on the timeline over the next 30 to 60 minutes. And otherwise things can drag on. They can, I don't know, deadlines can be missed, but it's a phase. And every wedding videographer, their big thing is like just juggling it. Like I'm looking at my calendar in July and it's like wedding, elopement, styled shoot, wedding. And so things just can back up real quick and you want to give attention to all the couples. And so.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. That's a lot of work, man, that goes into one video editing process.
Yeah. And that's just the highlight. Like if they could have got other stuff, like a lot of, So a lot of like, you can just deliver, you could deliver a highlight ceremony, speeches, feature, rehearsal, dinner, maybe a same day edit, maybe a longer edit. There's just lots of options depending on what couples want. Yeah.
So tell me, what if you had to give advice to somebody about our couples, what advice would you give them?
Oh man. I actually was just on a wedding show at the White Dress downtown Portland here, and I made a PDF, like the 5 tips. So these are my 5 tips. My biggest thing is I want to see couples have a stress-free day. And there's like 5 things that I've seen that really can push that over the edge and cause that not to happen to some degree. One of the things is the biggest thing where I see couples get off timeline is usually, well, one, I always tell couples minimize your locations as much as possible. The more locations you have, you're just kind of, gosh, what is it? What's that thing when calamity hits you and he lives at your house? And what's that saying for that?
I don't know, man.
Oh my gosh.
Hate
Oh,
when
that
that
book.
happens.
No, oh, yeah, oh, it totally sees my life. So with that being said, oh man, I'm gonna pause. You can edit this out real quick. Murphy's Law. Is that not it? Murphy will move into your bedroom and just, anyways, Murphy's Law. Something like if you create space for it to go south, it'll go south. So for example, if you have multiple locations, like if the bride's getting ready at A, he's getting ready at B, first look is at C, ceremony's at D, reception's at
Yeah,
E.
it's
It's
crazy.
just like, man, you're like, one, you're not like, budget's obviously a thing. People don't want to overspend. So if you think about that, you're literally paying professionals, me, photographer, all those people, you're paying us to drive, right? So that's expensive. The other thing is like, you just don't expect variables. Like I once drove a bride from her, where she got ready across town all the way out to the gorge. And literally we're coming down to a bottleneck where we go into a tunnel kind of near the city, and a truck had broken down on the right side. And I'm just like, dude,
Oh,
if you would have caused an accident, we could have easily got stuck here for like 2 hours until they
mhm.
cleared the road. There's no out. And so things like that make me nervous because I'm just like, I just don't want that to happen to a couple on a day. There's so much riding on that day. There's no money coming back.
Yeah,
It's not like they can just bump it the next day or the next weekend.
that's right.
And it just, it's like if you want to show up to a location and the groom just didn't really plan ahead and didn't expect how long it would take him to actually find parking and actually walk to the location. It's like there's so many variables. So I always encourage people as much as they possible. Best case scenario is like you get a venue, you get ready there, he gets ready there. You say I do there, you have reception there. That's like when
Yeah,
I see that, I'm just like, okay, you just totally removed a layer that could, explode on you day of that you wouldn't even see coming
yeah, that
because you
makes
just
sense.
can't control those variables.
Yeah,
So that'd be one, minimize locations. And next one is on the timeline, put when you're going to put your dress on and have that locked down. Say, I need to have my dress on by this time. And things that can cause that not to happen is one, you not being mindful of the timeline, but that's where a good photographer and videographer will kind of help that carry on. Another thing that can stop that is if the mother of the bride isn't ready by that time as well.
yeah,
By the time you're getting your dress on, you want mom there too, and mom wants to be looking the way that she wants to be looking. So that means like dress, makeup. So that means she technically needs to do everything you do just before you.
yeah, yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
Additionally, that's number two. Another one is can't remember them all. Hire a team of professionals. And the reason I say that is because you having a wedding is, I need to come up with a better analogy of this, but you having a wedding is like you're literally bringing together a team of people who maybe have never played together. Like if you think about sports and you're telling them like, hey, go make a touchdown,
Hmm.
right? But it's like, has the QB ever practiced with that wide receiver? So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That just means you need to find people who acknowledge that and say, great, I am so accommodating. And I acknowledge this is a wedding. And I acknowledge that if I put what I want first, I could be causing a ripple effect down the
Yeah,
line. Um, Case in point, that'd be like, say a photographer or a videographer says, hey, we're going to go do sunset session for 20 minutes. Say they tell the wedding planner that. Say they take 50 minutes. Okay, the ripple effect is catering had the food ready 30 minutes ago and there's 120 people who are hungry. And
yeah,
now catering's upset because now they're not getting the best presentation of their food. People aren't getting warm dishes.
yeah.
So there's
It's
just
cold.
that, and that's
Yeah,
just like one story.
yeah,
So
I know. Yeah,
I think I'll leave it at that. I think I had more stuff, but
that's
the
great.
hiring the professionals is also like, I think some people can cut on video because they want it. But I would say the three regrets I've seen with video is one, they don't get it. So there's a regret. The second one is they got it, but they didn't, the videographer just wasn't that good. And he made a product that they don't really want to go back and watch. It's
Yeah,
just, it's kind of lacking. And then the third is they hire a videographer, but he's not versed in weddings and isn't just a neutral impact, but a negative impact. For
mm,
example, I know a photographer who's on a wedding shot with a videographer where they kind of skimped on the video. And classic thing where like weddings are so fast. If you try to treat it like a commercial shoot, there's just no time.
Yeah.
It's not like everybody's waiting on you. It's the exact opposite. You're waiting on everybody else.
Yeah.
And you can't tell people to wait for you. And so the example was a gal was going up to do her first look, was going to tap the groom on the shoulder, and the videographer yelled, "Wait," right at that moment, because he wasn't ready with his gear yet. And the bride was just like, I don't know what happened before that, but the bride just said, "Whatever, I'm doing this. This is insane." They did it. And then afterwards she was crying because she's
Yeah.
like, that's just not what I thought. And I think that's my thing of where I think people think they're going to save in some area and hire somebody, and it could work out just fine, or it could go really negative.
Yeah.
And that's like, that kills me a little bit. Cause I'm like, I know if she could go back in time, she'd be like, oh heck no, I'm not making that decision. But
Yeah.
she just doesn't know what she doesn't know. And everybody gets married once, let's say, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, well,
I think it's a
but that's great to
combination
see
of
her.
a couple things. It's not just what they don't know, but it's also, so it's what they don't know, but it's also what's important to them. So if, maybe that wasn't as important to them because she
Hmm.
didn't know. And then they go, oh yeah, well, we'll just skimp on that for now. And then, then you realize that, oh crap, that was really important. And we kind of screwed that up. So
Yeah.
it happens, but yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the business side.
Sweet.
Tell me what's working well for you right now.
Relationships. Always.
Relationships. Yeah. I
Always.
hear that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, what's working well for me, when I say working well, it's like that could be a couple things, but obviously bookings coming in, getting couples who want what you offer at the price that you offer it. And so the thing that has just worked well for me, and I just pushed into that, was just relationships. So for me, my thought process is um, I'm solving a couple problems by connecting with people. One of them is when photographers and wedding planners get asked, like, hey, who do you recommend for video? Um, I've talked to a lot of photographers where they just don't even want to give a recommendation because they're just like, videographers make my work harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing with that is, and I think that's videographers, just they make the day, I don't want to say about them, but in their head, they think a production has to happen this way, and they don't realize how impactful that is to the other team, the other vendors, especially a photographer. And so because of that, it just makes their day harder. And so my thing is, I want to connect with the photographer to say, hey, if a couple asks you and you think I'm a good fit for them, I want to be a resource, because everybody, when a couple asks for a recommendation, you want to be able to give them somebody really good they're going to fall
Yeah.
in love with. And so my thing is like, great, I can be that solution for you. And on top of that, I can make your job not just bad, not just neutral. I can make your day better to where you'll be happy I was there. Whether that's like helping you pick up a bag of gear because I got open hands, or we set up LED lights at some events, and a lot of photographers love that because they don't have to worry about missing with their flash and their focus, or
Yeah.
just not getting in their way, helping them move stuff, grabbing bags, assisting, taking over some creative responsibilities so
Yeah.
they don't have to think up moves the whole time. So that's my thing. And the reason I think that works really well is because if you reach out to photographers and establish a relationship with them, the flip side of that is essentially you're benefiting from all the marketing being done over the
Yep.
last X years to
Absolutely.
attract
Yep.
those clients, and you can kind of just hop in and ride it, and it's a win-win.
Yep. Do you feel like more photographers are offering video, or at least mentioning it, or couples asking for it? I mean, I know couples are probably asking for it, but at what point are the photographers saying, hey, yeah, we offer it as part of our deal, you want to add it on? Or I know this guy that's really great, let's get him in and you can have him.
Yeah, I think I see it more and more, and with camera equipment being simpler, and the fact that the equipment the photographers have is the exact same equipment the videographers have. I
Mm-hmm.
think if I was in a smaller market, or even this market, I think people who are really business minded can say, hey, why am I passing this away? Why don't I
Yeah.
bring up a team? And that's totally an option. My thought behind that is, if I was hiring, and I think that's totally an option, right? Because we talked about values earlier. Like, does a couple actually value video? If they don't, that's probably a phenomenal option.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to dump a ton of money into something that you don't care about as much or are going to watch. Like, if you value photo way more, then it's like, great, how much is left
Yeah.
for video? Find a solution to that. But obviously, I don't know, like if I was a couple, it would be fairly easy to want to book a photographer that also offered videographer, because now you have a couple things where you're not worrying. Like, you're like, well, how are they going to work together? All those
Yeah.
things. So those are things that I acknowledge, and then I educate my couples on, of like my reviews on my website are half are wedding professionals, half are couples,
Yeah.
because it's just a big deal getting reviews from wedding planners, photographers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I see people in the industry, but my mind is like, if a photographer does that, in my mind, they have to bring another individual, and then they have to find somebody to edit it, and then they just might not like doing that, and there's all other things that can get involved. But at the same time too, it's like if I really valued video, I'd want to find somebody who eats, breathes, lives video.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. On the flip side of what we're talking about, what's working well, what would you say are your biggest challenges right now?
Uh, Biggest challenges, man, I could answer that anyway. I think as me as a business owner, just thinking about, I'd say the challenge of figuring out what to do next. Like things are going good, couples are coming in, couples are loving their edits. And I think now a challenge for me is just thinking, man, how can I figure out this hurdle of helping couples early in the process, being more of a resource for them? Because I've kind of done my relationships. I have great relationships with photographers, venues, planners.
Yep.
But now it's like, man, what can I do to help couples earlier in this process so that they don't turn into the couple that is telling their friend, oh man, you know what I wish I would have done at my wedding? I wish I would have got a videographer, or I wish I would have hired a more professional videographer. And so hence you're seeing a nice mic and a nice headset is because now I'm getting into podcasts where I've like sent out 3 emails and I'm like, okay, I want to lock down 2 photographers, a wedding planner, and I want to help them get their content out the same way you're doing this, because I find that as being super helpful to brides.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is like my top 2020 secret at the moment.
But
Because
it's
if
true,
brides
right?
are,
It's totally
it
true.
totally is.
Yeah.
It's consumable content that a bride could listen to on her drive. I don't know where else she could listen to that. And if she's planning a wedding in the Portland, Oregon area,
Yep.
then I can lock down all the vendors she's probably thinking about and give her something to consume on the road, on her daily commute that everybody has.
Yeah. You talked about building relationships is like super important. How long did it take you to get you to where you are today, building relationships? You've been in this for a long time. What would you say?
I think, well, I'll say this. I started the business 2011 and I went full time, and I was an EMT at the time, working night shifts at the hospital, in the emergency department. And I quit that coming up on 7 years ago. So it took me a couple years to just start the business, get the word out. I mean, at the moment, if you have no track record, you're just a gamble, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
maybe your work's great, but it's just a gamble to hire you. And so it just takes time to, taking photographers out to lunch, or I'm sorry, it's funny. Often I take photographers out to coffee, and then I take wedding planners out to lunch and spend a little bit more time with them. But I find it's just a little bit easier to connect with photographers over coffee, and I like wining and dining wedding planners.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just my biggest thing. And I just did a lot of them. And as a solopreneur, kind of like me, you just got to balance a lot of things between editing, taking people out, business stuff, taxes. It's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah. All the
So,
marketing, family.
yep.
Now with 4 kids on the way. I mean, you're going to have 4 kids here soon. So, yeah, it's going to be challenging. And it is challenging, right? As a single business owner, it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
In general. That's great. What would you say? So let's talk about the best or worst wedding story you got for me.
Oh my gosh. I saw that question. I'm like, I got can't. Well, man, maybe this is it. I was going to say, I got cancer right when I started my business. I got cancer, diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. My kid was born. No, what was it? I got diagnosed on like a Thursday. Our first kid leave, I was born on a Saturday. I started chemo on a Monday.
Holy cow.
So that was a really interesting time and the reason I bring that up, because like I have insane bad memory at the moment. Like almost embarrassing sometimes. Couples will call me and I'll be like, who's this? Have I booked you? I have to live off my computer and a calendar and all that stuff. And so because of that, you asked that question. I'm like, I'm sure I have a good one. The memory's been wiped clean, for better or worse. But I would say that was probably when that happened to me. It was literally a tough time. And I remember calling wedding planners and just telling them like, hey, I guess don't send me weddings because I could be dead next year. But if I don't die, I'd love to go full time and continue working with you, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say that was like, for a business thing, that was just like a really crazy time. But other than that,
but that's really good. I like that you talked about that, because that happens. Family stuff happens. When my wife and I started our paper business back in early 2001, we had a cancer situation in the family. My wife's cousin had reoccurrence of her cancer, and it was pretty bad. And they were really close, like sisters. And she passed away. And so it really impacted the family. It really impacted the business. And there's not much you can do about that. Those are just things that happen, and you have to just work through them as a individual, as a person, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's challenging.
they're tough. They're tough.
But you're cancer free today?
Yeah, I went through 5 rounds of chemo, and it knocked it out. And there were some scares along the way, but now I'm just going for checkups. So I'm kind of past that 5. They call the 5-year mark the magic mark. Don't know why, but
yeah, I don't know either. I don't know all the details about it either, but
they're like, your chances of getting cancer are pretty slim. And I was like, well, you don't even know why I got it in the first place. So that doesn't really.
So yeah, that I'm not sure it's pretty slim.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, good. I'm glad you're cancer free. That's fantastic. Craig, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.